Want to do better? Then it's time to change the story. Welcome to our show about new visions currently transforming the world through the confluence of art, tech, and innovation. And now your hosts, Michael Ashley and Neil Sahota.
Hey, welcome to another episode. Our guest today is Fred Werner with the ITU, International Telecommunications Union, which is a UN specialized agency, and he's the head of strategic engagements. Welcome, Fred.
Nice to be here, Neil. Thank you for having me.
So Fred, we like to kick off every call with this question. As a visionary, what is the story that you want to bring to the world?
We have about 10 years between now and 2030 to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And those are pretty ambitious goals. Everything, addressing things like zero hunger or clean air or education for all or gender equality, infrastructure. So a set of ambitious targets agreed upon by close to 200 countries. And 10 years isn't a long time. And with a lot of people I've been talking to, they see that AI holds great promise to advance many of these goals or at least make progress towards these goals. And what I would like to see is a lot of different voices coming to the table, working on AI as a high potential technology solution, and then helping to move the needle a little bit between now and 2030. And if you look at the timeline, any practical applications of AI that we identify today that could be impactful towards the SDGs, it might take 2 or 3 years to identify these solutions. It might take another 2 or 3 years to develop and implement these solutions. And then you only have about 3 more years left where you might see some kind of impact and a chance of moving the needle on some of those SDG goals. So there you have 10 years right there. So I think there's a sense of urgency to work on this, to get this done, to bring as many people together as possible. And that's pretty much how I spend my days.
Sounds like a lot. It's a lot of work, a lot of good work. Given that we have 10 years or less, I mean, how are you making this happen? I mean, how are you working with people?
Well, the good thing is I work at the United Nations, but by default, we can use our convening power to make sure the right people come to the table. And when I say the right people, I mean all people. So the AI experts themselves would say that AI as a technology is too important to leave to the experts themselves. What we're trying to do is bring together all the United Nations agencies, civil society, industry, academia, governments, students, artists, athletes, and men, women from all parts of the world. And our belief is that all these people should have a say in charting a beneficial course for AI in the near future or the near to long future. And one of the ways we've been doing that is we organize the AI for Good Global Summit. It happens once a year in Geneva, and it brings together several thousand people. And what we wanted to see was that there's, AI is it's a bit of a buzzword, and you have a lot of AI events. Some are of a trade show variety, some are very industry focused, or some are focused on specific regions. But we really wanted to use the convening power of the UN to bring all these people together to identify practical applications of AI to advance the sustainable development goals, and more importantly, to scale those solutions for global impact. So it's not enough to just identify the use cases, but once you've identified them, how can you deploy them across 50 plus African countries and all of the challenges that entails. That's a big challenge. So one thing is the technical side, but the context is equally important, if not more important. And I think that's what we can do as a AI for Good platform.
I want to come back to AI for Good in just a moment, but can we back up and explain what the sustainable goals are to people who aren't aware of that, first of all? And then second of all, could you also explain what it would look like if we did meet these goals? Describe what that world would look like to us. You mentioned, I think there were 10 of them. If you talk to us, let's imagine it's 2030. How does the world look if we do hit those goals? What does that look like?
Well, I think that the challenge is as soon as you've solved one problem, you usually have new problems that come. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. So
right.
One thing that's interesting is we have a lot of people who come to the AI Summit, and the summit's called AI for Good, and they're always like discussing, well, what is good? Well, what does that mean? So for some groups of people, it might mean one thing. For other, for one company, it might mean another thing. And we actually had the chairman of Siemens do a very good keynote last year. And he was talking about the fact that, a great deal of the AI talent this year is basically going to big tech companies with, not to be cynical, but with the goal of, maybe selling more ads or more targeted ads. Or so he was a bit annoyed that a lot of the brain power and a lot of the effort and the AI talent is put towards, very commercial type goals, but also not even very sort of ambitious goals. It's more just how can you sell more lawn chairs online through Facebook ads, which is a pity because AI is such a high potential technology. And I think these people are extremely smart, and but okay, they're being a large chunk of the brain power is being lured there. And he was saying, well, we should be using this brain power and this talent to solve big challenges. So how can we clean air? How can we clean our water? How can we have sustainable energy? How can we provide better education? And but unfortunately, not a lot of the talent is focusing their efforts on that. And then at one point he said, so what do we work on? How do we know what's good? And he asked that question to the audience. And the answer was, well, we know what's good. And he put up on a giant screen the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And he was like, as long as we follow this framework, then we don't need to spend the first 500 hours trying to decide what's good. We use this as a framework. It's been agreed upon by close to 200 countries. It touches, basically all important areas of society. So life on land, life on water, education, equality, trust, fairness, peace, infrastructure, education, healthcare. So all of those, it's actually a very good framework. And I have quite a lot of friends who work in business as well. And they come up to me and they're like, oh, Fred, thanks for creating the SDGs. And I'm like, well, first of all, I didn't create them. This is something that's been worked on by thousands of people. And before the SDGs, you have the Millennium Goals. So this is sort of an evolution of the Millennium Goals, to take us to 2030. And I'm sure when we get to 2030, we might have the 2050 goals or something. But they basically told me, thanks, because before the SDGs, when we had to create a kind of corporate social responsibility strategy, we'd have to hire a consultant and sort of map out what we're doing to key areas. And it was like a big process. It was expensive. And now they just map themselves to the SDGs. So whether they're doing like an annual report or a financial report or a corporate strategy, it's a very good framework for aligning, what you're going to do to these goals without having to overthink or rethink or reinvent the wheel. So in that sense, I think people find it very useful as a framework for decision making and problem solving and prioritizing. And for sure, it doesn't address everything. I mean, in each goal, you have a set of targets, and you could probably drill down and down for days or years. But as a starting point, I think it's a very good and practical framework to organize yourself around.
Very good.
Well, I think you're doing great work, but it's also overwhelming, right? I think about like, how would I help tackle climate change? How can I move the needle for that? And at least one of the things that I've learned is that small changes add up, right? In the aggregate, if we all do stuff, it actually makes a difference. It moves that needle. Talking about what the world will be like in 2030 and how do we get there, and like why AI? I mean, what's kind of the gap we're facing today, and how do we think AI is going to actually help us bridge some of that gap?
Yeah, I think the gap is probably the biggest thing. So if you look at the evolution of the summit, you have the first year. I mean, this was about 4 years ago. AI was a relatively not a new term, but all of a sudden it became a buzzword. It was in the media. You had a lot of pictures of Terminators, in news blogs and dystopian scenarios and the end of the world, and it's going to steal all our jobs. So that was very much of a narrative as a new topic. And we saw in the second summit that the discussion kind of matured a bit. So it was good we had that first spark. It was needed, and the discussion started to mature a bit. And then it was more about, okay, how do we handle this? What are the risks? The cybersecurity risks, what's the impact on labor, how do we organize ourselves, and more of a mature discussion. But we saw last year it was really about identifying practical solutions. So if you look at the first summit as a spark, the second summit as a bit of a more mature discussion, last summit was really about identifying solutions and not only identifying them, but scaling them. So what we've seen through 3 years of summits and presentations, exhibits, and demos is there's no shortage of AI for good applications, use cases. So whether it's using a mobile phone to detect skin cancer with your camera phone, or diabetes through taking an image of your eye, or using machine learning to identify tumors on X-rays, or to identify deepfakes, or to provide nice tools or applications for disabled persons. I mean, so many use cases. But the challenge is a lot of these use cases or pilots or apps, they've been developed in a kind of a lab setting, or maybe in Silicon Valley, or in a nice university in Europe. And how do you take those solutions and actually scale them properly, globally to those who need it the most, the developing countries? Yeah, it's a very different thing to try and roll something out in Africa where electricity is an issue, basic things like solar power, or making something waterproof or tamper-proof, and all these basics where a professor in a lab wouldn't think of. That context becomes really important if you want to scale something properly and actually make it available to millions of people who need it. So at the end of the last summit, the scaling issue really became the topic of the day. So we went from the spark to maturity to identifying solutions, and now it's scaling solutions. And one thing that emerged was a need for an AI commons. So if you think of open AI and open data resources as a common and shared resource, taking the word commons from the old days where you had the commons grounds where people could help themselves to water or different things. So you think of AI and data as an open and shared resource. How can you enable problem solving at scale with the open AI and data resources that are available? And it sounds easy. It's actually harder than it sounds, because there's more data available than ever before. I mean, it's multiplying exponentially, and there's more open data available than ever before. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there's more problem solving and collaboration happening. Just because that data is available, it just doesn't automatically lend itself to using AI for good and to create all types of projects and problem solving. So what we came up with was the idea of the AI commons. And if you look at it in different layers, the idea behind it is that AI for good problem solving should be as easy as ordering an Uber, in the sense that you're matching an AI innovator with someone who has a problem, and that matchmaking capability should happen automatically, enabled for it to scale. So if you imagine you have, I don't know, a scientist in Silicon Valley who has like cutting edge technology, and then there's a mayor of a town in Vietnam who has problems X, Y, Z. They're not going to meet. They don't know each other. They'll never know each other, right? But if you had a kind of platform where you could connect AI innovators with problem solvers, and in order for that to happen, you need basically a problem statement so they can speak the same language. And as we know, AI works very well in sort of well-defined narrow confines or settings, but it doesn't work. I mean, you can't just have a mayor saying, I have a traffic problem, and then hope that a scientist will turn up. So creating a problem, an AI for good problem statement, which would be, I guess, kind of somewhat standardized, is probably the most important part, where if you're going to connect an innovator with a problem solver, we need to create that kind of translation mechanism, right? And then the next step would be the intake mechanism. So let's say you've made this Uber match, right? You would need an intake mechanism. So how can you intake that problem statement into a kind of sandbox environment where there's open data, there's open data sets, open algorithms, and compute power and storage. And then there's a sandbox environment where people can actually play with the data, with the algorithms, do testing, benchmarking, and training and fine tuning. So yeah, you basically have the innovator, problem solver. They speak the same language with a problem statement, intake mechanism into a distributed, decentralized kind of sandbox where you would have algorithms and open data, and then that's where the machine or the magic happens, where they would find solutions. And then through that, you would have basically a community of best practice. You would have things at work. You would maybe be able to benchmark these solutions. And at the end of the day, that's sort of the conditions that you would need to scale AI for good problem solving globally. Until you have that kind of mechanism in place, it's just going to be people in labs inventing apps and solutions, maybe startups commercializing things, but you're not going to have that scaling potential that everyone talks about at the summit.
It seems right now that a lot of people are afraid of AI for the obvious reasons, taking our jobs. Potentially, people are afraid that the robots are going to rise up and kill them, things like that. But what it sounds like what you're doing here is you're democratizing artificial intelligence. You're bringing it to more and more people. So could you paint a picture for us in terms of if we go from a situation where there are haves and have-nots right now with AI and other technologies, as the technology becomes more centralized in terms of it gets to more and more people, what might the world look like then as more and more people have access to both AI and other kinds of technologies?
I think you're going to see a lot of innovation coming out of those areas where potentially there'll be leapfrogging technology in different ways. So as bad as it sounds, not having a big legacy of technology or a history, many years of business and infrastructure and things that are set in stone can be an advantage sometimes when you're trying to leapfrog. So for example, if you look at East Africa, they're leading the way for digital payments, for example, because out of necessity, and they just leapfrog probably 30 years of development that the rest of the world is catching up with. So maybe you could see something similar when it comes to AI and AI development and business models and applications. But I think the risk also would be that in doing so, a lot of things might drop along the side, like data privacy, respecting people's rights, and so there's a lot to figure out there, where the opportunity is there, but at the same time, people do need to make a living, and the way it might develop very quickly without any safeguards in place. And those safeguards, I don't want to say the luxury of the Western world or people who come to the summit and have the time to think about these things. But at the end of the day, if people need to use AI and like IoT and big data to help improve their agriculture or their farming or ride sharing or the way people move around the city, I think a lot of these things will develop very quickly, but not necessarily maybe in the best direction or that's beneficial for all, and that could be part of risk. So on the one hand, I see a lot of opportunity there, but I also see that there is sort of a lot of guidance that's going to be needed to make sure it goes down the right path.
Well, I would agree, right? It's a balance, right? We have to always balance these things out. And I really like your, leapfrogging, because you look at, some of the African countries and some of the Asian countries, they grew up without landlines, they grew up without credit cards, they never had that infrastructure. And so it was easier for them to leapfrog, right? They weren't trying to kind of displace something that they were all used to using. They were making a huge jump. And I think you actually make a really good point in that there are some problems that, even though they're local, actually are experienced by a lot of the world. Natural disasters, for example, right? They may be different forms, but I don't know any place in the world that's safe from natural disasters. Food production, food safety, and I think these different perspectives, like you're talking about, can actually create some novel solutions for the world. I mean, you talk about leapfrogging. It'd be amazing to see some of these countries that, people might say are okay, they're underserved or third world, but because they don't have the same, I'll call it, blinders on that we might have, can actually come up with a more innovative solution. So I'm kind of curious, Fred, then, where do you think some of the next great ideas might come from?
I think Africa, to be honest. I mean, from what I saw from that event in Cape Town, and just out of necessity, you see necessity is the mother of invention, and there I think you'll see amazing things coming out of there. Yeah, at least I like to be optimistic about that. And again, I don't think it would be AI alone. I mean, it's always a combination of technologies. So, if you look in the context of agriculture, it's a combination of IoT sensors, which would be combined with telecommunication networks, which would be combined with big data, and then the AI-powered sort of analytics, which would be used to maybe optimize farming and water use, and then maybe combined with satellite imagery to map deforestation. And I think all these things combined have huge, huge potential. And that's actually one of the dream projects coming out of the summit that was proposed by Stuart Russell a couple of years now, and that's also taking shape in the AI Commons now. It's what they call Project Zero, which is imagine if you, I mean, not imagine, I mean, we know that the Earth is photographed every day thousands of times. I mean, I think it's something like 3 terabytes of images of the Earth are produced every day, and different types of images, whether it's high resolution photos that's only for government agencies, lower res that is available commercially, but also infrared imaging and all types of different forms of imaging. If all of that were made available as a kind of public resource, and then you combine that with the big data and AI processing power and analytics, and then you could basically have a kind of Google Earth, but a much more advanced Google Earth, where you see the Earth changing in real time. Imagine what kind of problem solving and analytics you could do with that. I mean, you could literally see deforestation as it's happening, or for disaster prevention, or for civil unrest, if there's refugee movements, or all types of things. And then if you open that up to anyone who has a creative problem solving mind, who knows what kind of correlations and problems and things people would find with availability to that amount of data. So that's and very much in the spirit of the AI Commons, because that would be the ultimate common resource. And it's a project that they're trying to get going in the it's called the Global Initiative for AI and Data Commons. So that's something that came out of the summit as well. You'll definitely be hearing more about it as well. But also for it to work, you need massive collaboration, breaking down a lot of traditional barriers. I mean, you need satellite companies to cooperate, you need governments to cooperate, you need universities, you need data scientists, you need all types of things. And you're looking at $1 billion project, basically. But also $1 billion is not a lot of money compared to things that are being spent on these days.
Yeah, so that's why you need a lot of strategic engagements like you're doing, Fred.
Yeah. Well, speaking of creative minds there for a moment, are you seeing anything that's exciting too on the art realm when it comes to AI and technology, new ways that the people, especially young people, are using artificial intelligence artistically?
Yeah, so that was one of the nice surprises of last year's summit is we invited a few artists to basically come and showcase how they're using AI to push the limits of their creativity and human performance. And we didn't think much of it at the time, apart from the fact that it's a fascinating topic. But we presented this at different points during the summit, and our participants were amazed, because I think, first of all, that they had no idea. They were really blown away because these were world-class artists. But more importantly, it also changed the narrative, where it was, the discussion was it turned to a point where it was more along, what does it mean to be human? What is intelligence? What do we want? And if we don't know what we want, how do we have any chance of moving the needle left or right? And it took the discussion really back down to a human level. And I think it also eliminated a lot of the fear factor, where if you can see an artist like flourishing because of this technology, then all of a sudden it's not the killer robot that's trying to ruin everything. It's actually, and it was, we had a couple of people who showed up. So one was an artist called Harry Reeves One, and he basically holds the world record as the best, fastest beatboxer in the world. I mean, it's phenomenal what he can do. And he has the most powerful diaphragm in the world, and he needs that to be able to beatbox. And he's basically working, he has many projects, but one of his projects is he basically created an AI version of his beatboxing voice. And then he would basically riff off his virtual version. So he would throw something at it, and then his virtual AI-powered beatbox would throw something back, and then he'd throw something back, and the next thing you know, there's this completely unpredictable kind of jam session happening between him and a virtual version of himself. And the way he explained it was that what came out of it, first of all, surprised him, and then it made him think differently creatively, but also pushed his limits as a performer, because all of a sudden he has to kind of outdo his virtual self. And when he demoed this, I mean, people were amazed. And there was another person we brought, which was a world famous drummer. So I happen to be a drummer as well, so I kind of used my hobby to pull someone in. And he did a great talk because, I mean, basically he was saying, you know, oh, everyone's scared of job replacement and AI taking their jobs. And he was like, look, I was job replaced 30 years ago with the drum machine. You know, I mean, the drum machine was invented in the early 80s, and it literally put drummers out of work, or at least drummers who didn't adapt, it put them out of work very quickly. And he did this great talk where he looked at the history of drumming, how it evolved, and then the drum machine came, and how it just disrupted everything. And at first he was frustrated because he was trying to drum as fast as a drum machine, but at one point it's humanly impossible because, you know, a drum machine can have 200 arms and it can go 400 BPM and it never gets tired. So he realized that was an exercise in frustration. But then instead of being frustrated or giving up or throwing down his sticks, he said, well, how can I use this to, you know, push myself creatively and also from a performance aspect? So he basically started reverse engineering electronic music, and in doing so became a very technically proficient drummer because he still had to keep up with the machines. But also he had to create the illusion of a drum machine playing multiple loops and samples, but with only 2 arms and legs. And that completely reshaped him as a drummer and made him one of the most in-demand session drummers of all time. And now he created a whole genre out of it. So his whole message was, you know, don't fear the technology. You know, you use it to push your own limits of creativity and performance. And basically, at the core, if you strip down everything that can be done by a machine, his opinion was that what's left is our ability to improvise. So everything else can be turned into ones and zeros, but he called it the space between 1 and 0 is where the humanity of the art lays, and our ability to improvise. That's where, you know, I don't say we're going to win. It's not a battle with AI, but that's where we should put our efforts, and as artists and as people. And I think also, you know, it doesn't matter if you don't have to be an artist or a drummer, but as things evolve, our ability to improvise as humans, whether it's you being job replaced or you have to retrain or rethink your business, that improvisation factor is, I think, something we can count on, not only count on, but like leverage, because that's our strength.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. I like that we live in the space between 0 and 1. But you know, this is like my big thing in life. I believe it's art plus sustainability plus technology, right? Sustainability is the goal. Technology is a tool to help accelerate realizing that goal. But none of that's going to really be effective unless we can influence people, help them modify their behavior. And art's a great influencer for that. And speaking of which, if people want to get involved, to get their organizations involved with AI for good or other ways they might be able to help the ITU or the UN in general, what's a good way of doing that?
I would say give Fred a call, get in touch. We have our website. Obviously, it's aiforgood.itu.int. And on there's many different calls. You know, so we have a call for startups, a call for AI experts. We have a call for artists. We have a call for demos, and we have a call for women in AI as well. So you should be able to fit in one of those buckets. But also, what's interesting now with COVID-19, everyone working from home. At one point, we were scratching our heads. I mean, when the news first hit, we were very quick to move the summit to September. We're like, within a day almost, we wanted to secure a physical space. But obviously, as time goes on, we realized that, okay, there's probably not going to be much appetite for international travel in September, not much budget for events. And, even if we could do something locally, it kind of defeats the purpose of the global summit, which was to get, 100 plus countries flying to Geneva. And then we said, okay, well, let's scrap that. Let's do a virtual event in September. And then we thought, well, why limit ourselves to 5 days in December? I mean, the whole point of going digital is you free yourself of the constraints of time, space, location, time zone. And it would be kind of silly to put all your efforts and kill yourselves trying to organize everyone around these days in September, and then you're not leveraging the opportunity of going digital. So what we've done now is basically, and we're learning as we go, but basically the summit's gone digital all year. We're, what would have been a 5-day program, we've stretched into weekly sessions, but we're also adding more sessions, also trying to program specifically for different time zones, so people don't have to wake up at 3 a.m. to catch one of our sessions. But at the end of the day, it's all about scaling and helping us to do our mission better. So we've always wanted to be the most, global, neutral, diverse, and inclusive AI for good platform. And going digital is going to help us to achieve that mission. So we've done about 5 virtual sessions now, and during those 5 sessions, we basically reached as many people as we did as the entire summit last year. And that was just with 5 virtual sessions, and we're just getting started. So we estimate by the end of the year, we'll probably reach 50,000 people if we keep this pace going, and more. And that's people who can't fly to Geneva. I mean, our last webinar, we had people from Senegal, Bangladesh, Nepal saying thank you. We're so happy to join and asking questions. And that's what the summit was all about, was just really offering up the platform to everyone. There's no ticket price, there's no fee, so I think maybe it's been a blessing in disguise in the sense that once we get through all of this, I really doubt we'll go back to the old way or the old format. Why would we? I mean, I think we still want to gather in Geneva, and that's nice, and we'll meet and shake hands, and that human factor is super important. But why limit it to 5 days when we could do it all year? And that's very much in line with scaling AI for good. Well, we also have to scale our own summit and how we do things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a very good instance of adaptation and innovation. Well, we're at the end of our show, so thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time, and this is wonderful. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you, Fred.
Well, thanks so much, Michael and Neil. And I look forward to the day we can meet again in person. Well, I've never met you, Michael, in person, but Neil I've seen many times, and I'm sure that day will come as well, and maybe in Geneva, who knows?
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Hey, if you like today's show, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment.
If you've been enjoying the Changing the Story podcast series, please subscribe and share it with your friends.
Thank you.